Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lee Eisen, and I'm the Executive Director of the San Diego chapter of the American Institute of Architects, which is a member-based organization of professionals that spans across the country and even around the globe. So our San Diego chapter makes up about 1,000 members, some of whom are here today. And it's really a great chance for us to connect professionals with the next generation of talent and emerging talent. And so that is why we're here today. And that's why we're here as part of the Career Expo that AIA San Diego puts on in collaboration with our institutional partners every year. So I want to say welcome. If you didn't catch yesterday's session with Jorge Gracia, I think you can do that on our website and find it on our YouTube channel. And I just want to make a plug for this week's programs. There's something every day at noon this week. So if you go to aiasandiego.org, I'll put the link in the chat. Be sure to check out some of the other programs we have going on. Tomorrow will be an interview workshop. And then Thursday will be an exploration of multiple pathways and avenues of architecture. And then Friday, we'll have the chance to actually network and meet with employers in our region. So that's really exciting. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Barbara Leone. Barbara is a licensed architect, and she's the co-founder and principal of Helio Architecture and Design. That's a multidisciplinary practice here in San Diego. Barbara's also a native Californian. In fact, she's an Angelino. So we're in good company here. We've got a kind of broad swath of Southern California. And actually, I'm wrong, Central California as well, schools here. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Without further ado, Barbara.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, my name is Barbara Leone. I am the current co-director of the EDI plus J, along with Dina Gonzalez, who was not able to join us today, but we are going to be representing her. And I am excited to be here today and be a part of this panel and moderate this panel for the Architecture School meet and greet. And we hope all of you are going to be able to really get a lot out of this today. I'm also happy to introduce our incoming 2022 AIA Treasurer and Secretary, Jamie Intervallo. She is an outstanding architect. She is with LPA Architects currently, and she is much of the brains of a lot of this Career Expo, and I'm happy to kick things off to her.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks, Lee. Yeah, we're very excited for the first day of the career fair. I think that in this advent of transitional COVID time, a lot of students have a lot of questions about the current environment at each of our local schools of architecture. So it's such a pleasure today to meet with everyone from all the different schools. And without further ado, let's do a little introduction to meet our esteemed panelists. So we have represented here schools of architecture from USC, CalPoly, NewSchool, Woodbury, and Palomar College. So I'd like to introduce each of our panelists here, starting with Jennifer at USC Architecture.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Park, and I am the Director of Student Services at the USC School of Architecture. And I have the great pleasure of working with prospective students like yourselves, freshmen, high school students applying for freshmen, transfer students looking to transition to the university. And I also work with prospective graduate students as well. So I look forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you, Jennifer. How about Mark from CalPoly?
Hi, thank you, Jamie. It's nice to be here. My name is Mark Cabrina. I'm an architect and I'm a professor of architecture at CalPoly in San Luis Obispo, and I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. So as Associate Dean, I focus on student success, engagement across our curriculum, and really enjoy outreach and talking about our program. And I'm here, I think, focusing on architecture, but I think also want to emphasize we have city regional planning, landscape architecture, architectural engineering, and construction management in addition to architecture. So lots of parallel or related disciplines that I think it's very important to also place front and center.
Thank you, Mark. How about Stephanie from NewSchool? Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie with NewSchool. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions, so I work with prospective students like yourself. I've been with NewSchool about 7 years, so there's pretty much no questions I can't answer, and I look forward to all of those really great questions you're going to have.
Thank you. And Erin from Woodbury School of Architecture.
Hi, my name is Erin Gensler. I'm really excited to be here. I'm an licensed architect and educator. I have a small practice, but I'm also the chair of architecture at our LA campus. I'm the one who sees all the portfolios and looks through your application. So there's also, if you have specific questions, I can answer those, but I'm also really thrilled to be here with such amazing colleagues, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Joe from Palomar College Architecture Program.
Thank you so much. My name is Joe Lucido. I'm the Director of Architecture at Palomar College. And what really we like to do at Palomar is help you out on this pathway. So some of you may not want to jump right into a university or trying out different careers. So at Palomar, what we'll do is we'll help bring you into the fold. We have a lot of high school students, but the nice thing is we also have a lot of active veterans. We've got veterans, we've got people coming from industry into a different industry and transitioning. So our goal is to really help you on this way and create a pathway so you could start into architecture and move on to one of these phenomenal universities and then onto a career.
Fantastic. Thank you. And with that, we'll start with formal questions. Barbara Leon will start us off. But then just a reminder to all of our virtual audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat. We will have a section at the end open for Q&A. So go ahead, Barbara. Thank you so much.
All right. So as our first question, just kind of as a segue from what Joe just said right now, we want to talk about transition programs. So for our first question, for students that want to try different majors for the first couple of years or returning students later in life, can the school share what the options are for students who would like to transition into a Bachelor of Architecture program and what are the minimum requirements? And we'd like to start with Palomar with Joe, since Palomar College is pretty much one of those schools that helps us in transitioning.
Thanks so much, Barbara. It's amazing. This being here is a great opportunity because the first thing we can see is when you start off at a college level, sometimes you're not completely sure the path that you want to take. The nice thing about the college level is it allows you to try multiple avenues and see what clicks. And our goal in the architecture department is to, first off, see that you really enjoy this because it is a career. So what you're going to be learning is just going to be a long road to something that you're not really going to love, I'm sure, but we got to make sure that you're starting off on the right footing. The second thing we like to do is to make sure that you're not spinning your wheels. So, at Palomar, what we try to do is an intake interview process where you'll meet with me and we'll sit down and we'll talk about, is this the career you want to do? Are these the goals that you've set forward? And how do we transition you onto a university? And then the last thing we try to do is make it a very realistic experience. Our program really dovetails into a lot of these other amazing programs. Over the years, colleges have really changed how we bring our material to the forefront. We're working with our industry partners to redo our curriculum. But what's nice is we're also working with our university partners to make sure our assignments blend in nicely with what they're assigning in the first 2 years. Lastly, what we want to do is we try to really have our students understand is a 2+3 transfer agreement. And for a lot of you out there, you may not know what that means. Architecture is on average a 5-year commitment. And what we want to do at the college level is to make sure those first 2 years are used fruitfully so that you can transfer in potentially as a third-year student at a university. And what's so nice about the schools that are represented here, we've got a few transfer agreements, our 2+3 with NewSchool of Woodbury. We're working on with CalPoly as well. So you can see that your university partners are really helping us kind of create this seamless pipeline. So that's kind of our role in this kind of position. And when, at any point in time that you walk into our program, we want you to be part of this community. And the last little thing I'll share is we want to introduce you to this broader community. If you're a high school student, you may not know about the AIA or NewSchool or USC. So by inviting you into our campus, we can also help you understand who is out there and how you can start using these resources on a larger scale.
I think
Great. Oh, go ahead, Erin. Yes, you're next.
I'm ready. Yeah, I think what Joseph was talking about is our articulation agreements, and we have over 20 with different community colleges. Our curriculum is really designed to support transfer students who come into our communities. I think the work that's being done at community college is so invaluable to like the way that we educate, but also we've tried to really support our community colleges and literally created an event called Platform to celebrate them. So definitely check that out. I think it's on YouTube now, but it's a really fun event that has gone, it was a gallery show, and now in the last few years has been a digital Pechakucha event. And so I think like a lot of my colleagues here, we have these agreements with community colleges really just help reduce overall costs, but also to support maybe a more meandering path to get you into architecture or other design, allied design professions.
Great. How about Stephanie from New School? Any updates
Yeah,
to
so
requirements?
much like Woodbury, we do have transfer agreements. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody. We also take first-time freshmen. So if you know exactly what you want to do, you want to be a designer, an architect, or construction manager, you absolutely can apply to New School. And we'd love to have you, but we do have a large population of transfer students and definitely try to cater to both. We also have a graduate program. But you will be assigned an admissions representative, either myself or somebody on my team that can walk you through the process, and we'll send you all of the steps to do so.
Excellent. How about Mark from CalPoly Slow?
Excellent. I think what's really important is having that goal in mind from the start. And so we have articulation agreements with 13 different community colleges. And to make the 2+3 work that Joe was talking about, it does mean really starting in the community college on the right track. And another thing I would just add is we're all here because we want to see you in the profession and see you successful. So please don't be shy about reaching out. It's definitely okay if you're just starting out and you're thinking about going to community college and you're wondering about CalPoly San Luis Obispo. And I know that goes with all of my colleagues out here. Please don't be shy about reaching out. We're here to support you. And if you're that engaged starting out, that's definitely a student we'd like to see. I'd also like to touch on one other thing. If for students that are starting out as first-time freshmen, sometimes you realize this isn't the path that you wanted. And so there are options for change of major as well. And I think one of the advantages that I see in our change of major is sometimes as a high school student, you think you want to be in architecture, but you realize you actually really like the engineering side. And so we have processes for changing major to architectural engineering, or maybe you find out you're really interested in urban design and policy and city regional planning. So it's just really important to reach out and kind of talk about what your interests are, and we will all help you kind of find you on your path.
Excellent. That's really great to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And lastly, we have Jennifer from USC.
So at USC Architecture, we welcome transfer students to our undergraduate level programs. We also have, we actually do have more freshmen who do enroll with us, but our transfer students are so very well prepared, coming from a wide range of community colleges and other institutions locally, nationally, internationally. So it's a very diverse student population. And many of the transfer students who, as well as freshmen, who are looking at USC, are also looking at the breadth of other opportunities at the university in terms of other academic majors, or engaging in a collegiate experience with clubs and organizations. And so whichever path one takes, we encourage students to really think about, what your long-term interests and goals what your long-term interests and goals are with college going experience, and, finding the school that will be the best fit for you. And whether it's transferring and taking the time to kind of explore at those transfer institutions, or even at USC, there are students who will take classes concurrently with their architecture courses outside of the major to kind of dabble in electives or pursuing minors. There's a lot of great ways to have a full academic experience at USC.
Great, thank you so much. I also wanted to add, I myself was a transfer student. The reason why I transferred, it was not only just because I was sure of my major, but it was because I didn't get into my school of choice, which was in a completely different state. But going into the college transfer school first allowed me to then get into SciArc, which then later became my school of choice. So if you don't get into the school that you would want, you don't have to get discouraged. You could, try out a college and then transfer into it later when you might, have a better portfolio and things like that. So that's another reason to use a transfer path. I'd like to then now move over to the next question to Jamie.
Thanks, Barb. And I'll just add too, there's a lot of great questions in the chat we're going to get to at the end, but I'll also add to, to everyone's point to try different things, right? In your earlier part of college and in high school. I myself was an undergrad in biochemistry and cellular biology and urban design and planning. Very strange. Then I got my master's in architecture. The whole point of the story is you don't need to figure it out when you're 18, and it's okay if you change your mind. And it's even better when you have that breadth of experience underneath you. So lots of great information from all the best schools here. So my question is about portfolio, and especially for an incoming freshman or a transfer student from another discipline like I was in urban design and planning. That could be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Scary to put that together. What do you put in it? What are the kind of things that you all are looking for? So I'd like to go around and ask each of you any kind of advice that you could give to students, especially those who are just coming into architecture. So maybe let's start with any schools who do not require a portfolio, and I believe New School and Woodbury, correct? Okay, so you both do not require a portfolio, but I do know CalPoly does. So Mark, any advice for our students here, especially newly coming into architecture? What kind of things are you looking for?
So we only take portfolios for our transfer students. For our first year students, there is no portfolio requirement. And what's really important for our transfer students is we have articulation agreements with 13 different schools. And what we look for in that portfolio is a student's ability to be successful at CalPoly. So we're looking for not just your design ability, but your ability to think about design in relationship to materials of construction, how you might be able to also talk about process. How do you think as a designer, not just the final outcome, but kind of how did you get there? And also, how do you think about the really big picture, but also in architecture, what we talk about is diagrams, like how do you distill a big idea into a few essential elements. But again, that is for our transfer students, and for our first year students, we do not have a portfolio requirement.
Thanks, Mark. And can you share a little bit about your summer program too, as well? Sorry, your
yeah, no, it's perfect timing. So we have our architecture summer career workshop, and it's a career discovery program. It's a 4-week. The summer we'll be returning to in residence, and we want students to be able to jump in the swimming pool. It's a fully immersive, learn by doing studio environment. Most high school students have not had the opportunity to engage in learning the way architecture is taught primarily through the studio environment. And one of the great outcomes of that architecture workshop, though, is a portfolio. And I know that was the case for me. I had no studio experience as a high school student. In fact, I went to this high school workshop at CalPoly as a high school student, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected it to be. And then the third week I said, oh my gosh, this is not what I expected, and I love it. But the first 2 weeks were like, what? So that's really great. And I do want to play up the portfolio part. Again, I have to be clear, we don't take portfolios for our admissions, but it's a great opportunity for many other schools that do take portfolios for students to help develop their design thinking and share that. And as a result of the pandemic, we've actually changed our workshop curriculum, which is emphasizes the portfolio a lot more than we ever did before. So I'm excited about doing both what we learned in the pandemic and applying that to our in-person workshop this summer.
Thank you, Mark. That's super helpful, especially if any, since it's in the summer, you can plan for it. And then, yeah, so Jennifer at USC, I do know you require it, correct? And maybe some advice for students?
Yes, we do require portfolios for our prospective freshmen as well as our transfer applicants. And so at the freshman level, you might be wondering, oh my gosh, I've never done architecture in high school, and what am I supposed to submit? And we actually are not expecting anything related or specific to architecture. We know it's not a subject matter that's commonly found in high schools locally or nationally. And but of course, if you have any experience or background, we'd love to see it. But for the most part, the vast majority of our applicants are sharing other kind of creative or visual experiences in terms of what defines them as a creative person. And so we see a lot of examples from high school level arts courses like your drawing or painting, photography, ceramics, woodworking, digital media. There are students who are naturally talented and haven't had formal course instruction and work independently on projects outside of the academic setting, or maybe as part of a club or organization. And so the reason why we look for portfolios in our freshman applicants is that we want to get to know the applicant as a whole. Obviously, the types of classes that you take in the academic setting are important to us. We want to have the sense that students are successful achieving great work in the classroom setting through those academic solid courses. But at the same time, we want to get to know you and your experiences in or outside of the classroom setting. What has motivated or inspired you to want to study architecture in a creative field such as architecture, because there's a lot of other disciplines that might be related that you could potentially go into. And so a lot of times we find that students who've had a visual or creative background or experience find that they're trying to make connections or connect the dots in terms of how to take their creative point of view as well as kind of their critical thinking and problem solving, analytical kind of skill sets, and how to put that all together in an academic discipline. And so architecture, can frequently check off that box. And so for you all to share your experiences academically, creatively, will give our faculty members a good sense about someone's potential to thrive as an architecture student at USC. For our transfer students, it's really not about what you should or shouldn't submit. You all are taking great courses at transfer institutions, and we want you to share with us what it is that you've learned and accomplished in those classes, and what skills that you've been able to develop as a creative thinker through architectural design.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think that's super helpful. And I do know that Joe at Palomar, you also have a portfolio workshop coming up here in May. Can you plug that and share for students if they can attend?
Absolutely. So what we try to do at the end of each semester, because some of our students choose to go right into industry, they'll get a certificate and they'll move right on to support our architects and local offices. And then some will transfer on to universities. We like to have a little portfolio jam. We do this in conjunction with interior design. On May the 25th and 26th, I believe it's going to be one of those 2 days. So you're more than welcome to attend that to see what our college is producing. But I also just want to throw out there for just general knowledge, what is a portfolio? But in essence, your ability to show what you can do. And whether you need to use it for a university, but just think of it as a tool to start curating your work. Because when I was at the firm, I was a senior designer. And that's all we ever did was put our portfolio out there in the world to try to get work. So it starts to get you into a good practice to think that the work that you do, you should keep it together, keep it organized, and start to build an understanding of this is the tool I'm going to use in the future once I'm all done, licensed, and on to a firm to start bringing in work for from clients. So think of it really as a big scale object too.
It's so true. I feel like it never stops. The portfolio continues to be reworked at a firm every single day. And one quick follow-on question to you three. Mediums of portfolio creation, there's so many. There's online websites, there's the entire Adobe suite. And I've also seen things that are more interactive with interactive hyperlinks. Just real quickly from each of you, do your schools see a lot of that? Do you need the flashy, most expensive website, or is it as simple as a PDF document with photos? If you're new to architecture, any advice? Maybe Mark, for you first.
We really only want a PDF. We
Okay.
want to see your work, and I would share that the way you lay out the work is also part of the design project, and really kind of focusing on the work itself. So,
Okay.
Yeah, please no clip art. You would be aware of your fonts. They
I
do
don't know if
matter.
Microsoft Word has that clippy guy anymore. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mark. How about you, Jen? Do you see any flashy websites, moving GIFs?
Yeah, USC uses the Common application, and through that partners with a website called Slide Room, and they have it so that it's literally uploading image files, and so it can be as simple as point and shoot. Take a photo of your model, take it, make a scan of a drawing, and then upload it. So the faculty prefer, a simple presentation of the work that's straightforward and that's in focus and, has a purpose to it. For our transfer students, to be sure, we know that many of you all have had advanced coursework and design development. And so we do see more of the prepared portfolios as if you were, presenting it to an employer. You have pages, so you have spreads. And so we do see, more of that advanced level designed work, and that's perfectly fine as well. For those of you who've had that experience, there are some transfer students who haven't gotten to that level, and that's perfectly fine as well. And so the faculty, you have to understand, they've worked with a lot of students, in the degree program, have reviewed a lot of prospective student portfolios. It's not about, using the expensive materials, contrary to what students may think. It's not about, having the most advanced, software skills. It's really about, your ideas shining through and the thoughtfulness of how you present your work, and the ideas that went behind them that are going to really stand out to the faculty.
Thank you, three. I really appreciate the advice. And again, there's lots of information among coming workshops in the chat, so students take a look at that. Back to you, Barb.
Okay, great. The next question is regarding essays. We know that those can be somewhat of a stressful element for applying to schools, and basically, what are the advices that the schools can give to the students in regards to composing a thoughtful and meaningful essay? How can they be unique, find their voice? Obviously the obvious grammar and spell check issues, but what are the kind of advices that you can give to students, maybe for those that might not have a forte in writing or that might not have like the best writing skills? And what have you guys all seen that are sort of unique and innovative ways to compose an essay?
I'm just going to go ahead and say, I think for most of us, we want to see MLA format. I know for New School, we want 1 to 2 pages. We do have prompts on our website that are some, like content generating questions if you really are struggling to find your voice. But I think for the most part, what we're looking for is 3 really good, solid paragraphs. One being, how did you get inspired? What led you to the decision to become an architect, a designer, or a construction manager? The second being, what are your goals for the future? Do you want to design space stations for NASA, or, what does that look like? Sustainable design in Peru. Tell us about that. And then how is coming to our particular school going to be a vehicle for you to achieve your goals in the last paragraph? So it's pretty simple, at least for a lot of the students that I have seen. That is the best method.
Excellent. I love the 3-paragraph approach. It really helps break it down. Sometimes it could be seem like, very scary thing to put together. CalPoly, Slow, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are very simple. We don't actually have a student essay. Our application is purely based on coursework's GPA and extracurricular activities.
Great, that makes things very easy for your application. Excellent. USC, Jennifer?
Sure. So as I mentioned, USC utilizes the Common application. And so that in and of itself requires a long form essay that's common to all the schools that you might be applying to through the common application. And then each of those schools has writing supplements. There's 2 short answer responses. It's like 200 words in that range about kind of what your interests are, generally, and how you want to achieve them at USC, because obviously there are a lot of great choices out there, and we want to know specifically what's drawing you to apply to our university to study architecture. And so what those prompts are through the common application, and they're actually really important to the faculty members, because the academic grades obviously say tell us very specific information about what types of courses and whether they were rigorous in terms of honors, AP, IB for high school students, or if you've taken appropriate transfer prep courses. But those written responses really stand out to the faculty, because you have to imagine we're looking at many applications, 1,000+ applications for about 70 new freshmen or 15 new transfer students. And so your personal voice really stands out. Each of you come from very unique backgrounds and circumstances, and we really want to get to know you and what is exciting and motivating you to want to study at this university. Frequently for many of our transfer students, it's been a bit of a journey to achieve the next steps, or get to this point of next steps to transfer to a university. And so helping us understand your background and your experiences gets us a better idea about someone's overall level of interest, as well as maturity and preparedness to come into the university to study this discipline.
Great, thank you so much for those awesome tips, Jennifer. And for those of you, the students that might not know what Common App is, I've just placed the website on the chat here on the side. It's an application that facilitates applying to more than one college at the same time. So the link is there for everyone to check out. And next we have Woodbury. I need thoughts on essay composition.
Yeah. As someone who also reads the essays, I would just like to echo what Jennifer was mentioning. It's a great way to get to know you personally. We get to know you through your portfolio. At Woodbury, it's not required, but it's recommended under 500 words, please. But I've laughed, I've cried, I've read a bunch of essays, and I feel like we just want to make sure that when you get to our institution, you succeed. And so knowing you better helps us do that. So yeah, it's not required for us, but definitely if you have something to say, please say it.
Thank you so much, Erin. Great. So I think we got some excellent advice on the essays, and hopefully this gives you all some good tools for composing a stellar essay. I'm going to kick it back to you, Jamie, on the next question.
Okay, so one of the things that most incoming students and those returning to school from another discipline path really think about culture. Each of your schools have their own unique culture based on the cities and regionality of what you do, and also the culture of the school itself. But with that in mind, it's very different. Now in post-transitional COVID, who knows what we are at this point, no masks. So I would like to go around the room and candidly share from each of the schools, what is it like for students right now? Is it back to normal-ish? Are there school dances again? Are clubs getting together? We are not wearing masks, or our classes outside. Any kind of advice or glimpses into your schools would be great. Maybe we'll start with Mark at CalPoly. How is it?
Excellent, thank you. First I did want to acknowledge why that culture, if you're wondering why we're talking about culture, how important that is, because it's so fundamental to how we learn as architects, not just individually, not just between you and a faculty member, but in the studio environment, learning from each other. It's a really beautiful way to learn. And so what we're seeing with the return of our students, which is really fun, is the student out in the open again. So on Monday, I arrived. This is our review week at CalPoly and for winter quarter. At Monday, I arrived to 200 first-year basswood models lining up our stair court, and students all over celebrating them. And I just
Wow.
I just smiled so much. And so that's a wonderful aspect, I think, of a school student culture. And I know we all have that, is seeing the work.
So true.
And the same weekend, we had every single thesis student, about 160 students, presenting their work in 1 minute with every thesis faculty there on the review. Quite a commitment. That is 4 days in a row of like 9 to 5 reviews, Friday through Monday. Now that's even more of a commitment.
Wow.
So it's just really great. I'm seeing students out and about again. And yet the thing I want to add is we have learned a lot over the next 2 years. And I know for those of you that are, anticipating what it's going to be like, I'm an optimist, just that's a warning. But I think we've learned a lot, and actually things are going to be much better. I teach every single third-year architecture student in a large lecture, which is not the best environment. And one of the things that I love to do is to actually be able to do that over Zoom and have a document camera where I can sketch with students. I always had that available to me 3 years ago. I just never used it. And now I can't imagine not using it. And so I actually think we're going to see the best of both worlds, is really focusing on the studio culture, how we connect with each other in person, but also how we can fold people in through Zoom and offer different formats. I'm very happy to be part of the AIA San Diego panel. I really enjoy San Diego, but I'm in San Luis Obispo. So this is a great environment of being a great example of being able to make this happen.
I love that. I love looking half glass full. At this point, we have to. Thanks, Mark. How about Joe at Palomar? Any thoughts from you at the architecture program? Studios back to normal?
Well, I love the fact that you mentioned the school dance. I think that's something we got to institute. I think we have to have the AIA school dance. Let's make this happen.
Yes, absolutely.
No, it's amazing. Mark, you said it really well. But community, culture, right? They go hand in hand together. The professors that you have here love what they do. We've been in the office, we've been in the bullpens, we've watched things get designed. We watch the magic of a Friday afternoon. We're all sitting around after lunch. Somebody shows us a design in the office. We love it, we laugh, we tear it apart, we joke. So that is an amazing thing about this career. It is such a hands-on interactive approach. Not one person can make a building by themselves. They need the community to build it. They need their colleagues, they need their other engineers, they need their general contractors, they need the drywallers. They need everybody to come together to build that vision. So at the school level, you need to feel that community, right? So right now we're part-time, we're back part-time in the fall, we'll be back full-time. So we try to recreate that community, because the better you are in a studio environment that has the same kind of energy and vigor and excitement, the better your designs are going to be. And the last thing, a little thing I'll throw out there is one of the favorite things we like to do at Palomar, and some of my students are here and they can attest to it, right? We put Pandora on, we get it streaming. We look at each other's work. We look over at what you're modeling and what you're modeling. We've got a vertical integrated studio. So we've got first years with second years. We've got our retired vets in with new high school students. And everyone's looking at each other's work, because in all that frenetic energy, that's the magic of design. Your design is that fifth little sketch that your friend saw on your desk that says, oh, that thing is so cool, rather than the first thing that you're trying to build right now. So take part, people. Really get out there, get involved, turn your cameras on, and get involved in the AIA and these other organizations as well as other schools.
I love that. Okay, AIA school dance at all of your schools. You heard it here. That'll happen.
Thanks, Joseph.
I know. How about you, Erin, at Woodbury? How was it?
Can I maybe make a plug for a Beaux-Arts ball? I love
Yes.
dance.
Oh my God.
But we don't need to talk about dance parties right now. Those aren't happening at Woodbury yet. But everything is a moving target, so it's hard to say exactly what's happening. Literally on Friday last week, they took out our mask mandate. So it will be amazing to teach and start to see people's faces again, their whole faces. But I think all of us who are in academia, in design, and in architecture and architects are inherently optimists. imagining more beautiful futures. And so I think in terms of culture, I think if you haven't been to architecture school yet, you will understand that there's really not very much like it. I think the way that we learn and talk to each other and support each other, it's a collective educational experience. And so the studio space, I'm echoing both what Mark and Joe have already said, but we've recreated it virtually, and there's lessons that we'll take from that. I think we're considering how to be more environmentally friendly, and instead of printing, putting stuff on the boards, being able to have a sketch log on concept board or Miro. There's definitely tools that we've gained from this experience that we'll bring with us forward, but there's also an energy and enthusiasm of being together and being back in person that I think I'm excited for. I know in fall we're planning to be totally back on campus, seeing everybody's faces. But again, the world seems kind of upside down, just to be totally honest. And so trying to make any concrete plans, it's hard these days.
If we've learned anything, it's how to roll with the punches. So all of you have done that day to day. So thank you, Erin. And Stephanie, how about you at New School? What's the culture been like?
Well, we are completely on campus. We do have to wear masks. I think that's going away in the next 2 weeks, though. I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But we're really focused on getting our students back into clubs, creating new clubs, trying to get them back into the mindset of collaboration. Architecture and design is not a linear program. It's really dynamic. So it's really important, as everyone has already spoken to be in a culture. And I think that, creating those clubs and inviting students in to create their own based on what their thoughts are, what their diversity is, military. And so they're really thriving being able to do that.
I love that. And thank you all for taking the half glass full stance. I think we've had enough half glass empty at this point in time, 2 years in, maybe almost over, maybe not. But I'll just echo and say what I love that you guys all shared was that at the heart of our discipline, at the heart of design is community and people and relationships. So outside of the beautiful things that are constructed out of it, it's not one person, but it's an army. It's a community of people that make great design, and each of you echo that in the school. So thank you for sharing that with the students. And I know that rings true in real practice every day. I feel exactly as you well shared. We're not allowed to put on Pandora overhead while studio is happening, but I do have it in one ear often sometimes. So, but yeah. So I think those were the formal questions on the major. Oh, yes, please, Jen.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So in terms of USC, we've been back in person since the fall semester. And I'm going to say it was a little bumpy because, coming back after a year and a half online in person was, scary for a lot of people. And being behind masks, it has that kind of, anonymity still, who's behind, that mask kind of feeling. And so it was a little bumpy road in the fall semester, but the spring semester, as of yesterday, USC has removed the indoor masking requirement. And so as I walked through the building, I saw like smiling faces. There was a lot more engagement with the students, and there are still individuals who continue to wear masks, and that's perfectly fine as well. And so I think but now that we're in the second semester of being back on campus, the students are slowly, kind of getting their sea legs per se, really getting, more comfortable with the surroundings, the environment, the studio culture. The students, they continue throughout, the fall into the spring with different clubs and activities, organizations. Some of them some of the activities were on Zoom, some of them were in person. And so the campus at large is doing a whole lot of in-person programming, whether it's with athletics or community engagement or just social activities. And so there are just robust things going on in and outside of the classroom setting at USC.
So real quickly, I mean, everyone knows about football at USC. Our game's back on. Is it half capacity, or you're allowing students to come on in? Sorry.
Amy,
Yeah,
you know I'm a Bruin.
I know. Sorry,
Right.
Lee.
It's all
We don't
right.
have
It's all right.
UCLA here today, but
Yes, no, but our capacities are to the full, to my understanding, at least for the indoor basketball.
Oh.
Football was like an eon ago in the fall semester. For
Oh, okay.
outdoors, I didn't have the greatest season, so actually didn't have as much attendance as we normally would. And so I think it was a wash in terms of that matter. So we look optimistically going forward to continue, getting back to the full swing of things.
Well, it's nice to hear that everyone's generally getting back to normal, which is great with hybrid setting availabilities in mind. So I think that's the best of both worlds, as everyone shared. That's great. Okay, so I think that was the formal questions that we had for each of the panelists, and we have some time left. We'll open it up to open Q&A. So I'll invite all students again. If you had any questions for any of our panelists, please share them in the chat. I do think we'll start with one here from Barton. So his question is, I'm a third-year real estate and development major at UCSD. And I was wondering if there are career opportunities in architecture firms for people with my skill set or more market analysis. I think I realized that I don't want to do numbers my whole life and was looking for careers that involve working with design and construction. So I guess to each of the schools, what is your advice to him? I know what I would say, but we'll start with you all first. Maybe Erin, what do you think for Barton?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you graduate with doesn't necessarily make who you are in the world. I know friends of mine who went to architecture school with me are doing shoe design and real estate development. And I think an education in the built environment really helps you understand a lot of what's happening in our world. So I do think that you'd want to look at bigger firms, AECOM, SOM, Gensler, to see sort of how you can situate yourself. I would also maybe plug a future AAA San Diego event that has folks in the practice. Sorry, and I think just starting to talk to people. We're in a really exciting time in architecture. It seems like things are picking back up again. I know it was hard for students to find career paths during the pandemic, but now it seems like the whole world is opening up again, even this weird semi-post COVID time. So I think that there's people looking for people like you. And so just starting to engage, go to AAA events, go to ULI events, starting to see where those overlaps are and how you can begin to engage with folks not necessarily within your practice track.
Yeah, 100% agree. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah,
any other advice, Joe?
You know, I've got a master's of real estate and development from Woodbury. And if you're really looking at that shift, I love to do my own projects. So what I would say is there are a lot of firms here in San Diego that are smaller that do urban infill. I could think of INDEV. I could think of projects like Jonathan Siegel's projects. So there's a lot of people out here that are architects developing and executing their own projects. Reach out to start looking at those firms. Use MRAD as a program to help get you into those colleagues that are both architect developers. And then what I would say is look outside of San Diego. It's very expensive to get into this game, but there's areas that are being developed. Our students are doing a project in Detroit. There's areas in Philadelphia that are really need that urban infill, and they need the architect's eye to come in with creative projects and your business analysis mindset to kind of spring something magical happening in those neighborhoods as well. So there's a lot of opportunity.
I like that. And yeah, Stephanie, advice for Barton?
Yeah, in case you find yourself wanting to know more about architecture when you get done with your real estate program, we do have a one-year program that does not lead to licensure that is for students like yourself who want to know enough about architecture to be dangerous in their field, but also not particularly, want to be licensed. So there's that option as well.
I like it. Anyone else? So I'll just echo what Joe said as well, Barton. I think that depending on the type of firm and the type of work that they do, that they can absolutely use that kind of expertise. So just get more involved in industry events. I agree, AIA, ULI, and if you're going to move anywhere else, get involved there, get to know people, and it really just fits the need of the region and the firm. So thank you for your question. We did get a second question from Dimitri. So I'll read it off. He says, I'm majoring in urban studies and planning and speculative design third year at UCSD. What are your tips regarding a career in architecture? Should I pursue a master's? Well, I know what I would say, but I'll open up to you guys first. Advice for Dimitri? Maybe Jen first.
Yeah, at USC Architecture, we do have master's programs for those who have an undergraduate degree that's not in architecture. And so these are individuals who literally come from the A through Z academic disciplines and have made a decision that architecture is something that they would like to transition to, because a handful are kind of mid-career folks who are going 180 career-wise. A good number are coming out of an undergraduate program in another discipline. Someone might be in some related backgrounds, but we have people from like anthropology or music education that also come into architecture. And so it's really about you letting us know what your interests are to make this academic choice at this point in your career. And students coming from the wide variety of backgrounds, it's really great because it really adds a really great dimension in terms of the type of interactions and conversations that you have in the classroom setting, because then you all come from such unique perspectives, whether it's the liberal arts, the humanities, social sciences, et cetera, and it all relates. It can be related to how you think about the design process within the built environment.
You just don't get too close.
I love that. Thank you.
I-
Any other advice, Erin?
Can I hop in? Yeah, what Jennifer said is I think the richness that the master's programs have, because everyone has different backgrounds. I didn't have an undergrad in architecture. I tried to avoid it because I knew what architecture was like, because I'm from a family of architects. But I will say, I think that in our program, one of the master students was saying that because she has an accountant who became an architect in her class, he did everyone's taxes. So I think there's not just the work in the classroom that inspires the cross-pollination of different professions. Architecture is about humans. And so having a background and an understanding when you come into your master's only will make your experience more rich, but also for those around you, it will make it richer. And I will say, I was not an architect, but I feel like I really found the people who make me make sense and who are like strange in the ways I'm strange. I think if you're curious about architecture, a great way to sort of dip your toes in is like a summer program. A lot of schools offer those, or taking a class at a community college if you're curious at all, because our master's programs do require portfolios. They're not, we don't expect you to have any architectural experience when we're looking at those portfolios, but we want to get to know you, as we said previously, about what we're looking for portfolios.
I love that. Thanks, Erin. How about you, Stephanie?
We actually had a few students about 5 years ago that came to us with no relation to architecture from their undergrad, and they created a pop-up park in downtown San Diego called Courtyard. So architecture is not just about designing buildings, it's also about designing, parks and places for people, as Erin said. So if you're an urban planner and designer, that might be a direction you might want to go if you pursue a master's.
All right, I love it. So what I would say to you, Dimitri, is I came into undergrad really believing in wanting to become a scientist and or going into the medical field. And I really did enjoy parts of it, but I realized that I didn't want to work in a lab. So I realized that probably like 3.5 years in. So that was detrimental to, you know, getting a job and being happy with it. So I did the second in urban design, and I really enjoyed that. I have a background, I have a family with architecture in the background, and so I'd always talked about those kind of topics. It felt really easy for me to connect, and I was all of a sudden loving class again and going. And then I decided to pursue a master's in architecture because I also like, for urban design, being able to zoom out, but I also wanted to have an impact zooming in to an actual parcel and doing a bit of development. So now in, you know, working, I think that that's all benefited me. I can see in different scales, and that provides value to the firm that I'm at and anyone that I work with. So I would say don't be afraid to try new things. And if it is daunting for you to go straight into it, I love the idea of trying a class, trying a program, just a quick session to see if you could even like it. So I know we have a couple more minutes, but final question from Dante here. I want to transfer from Southwestern. Is there any extraordinary tools or help that you guys can share? Any advice for Dante? I'll start off with Dante. We shared in the chat several programs coming up that could help you. There's portfolio workshops from each of the schools here, and we've posted information on it. Website information for each of those programs is here as well. And I'll ask the panelists if any students have a question, or would you allow them to email you directly? I think everyone is thumbsing up. So you have their names here and their schools. Please feel free to reach out. And then Stephanie, advice for Dante.
Yeah, I would say do your research and go to each school or an event for each of us, and then go to the articulations agreement and transfer agreements on our websites and check those out, download those, or I'm sure your transfer center has one for us as well. But the most up-to-date one is definitely on our website. And that's going to be the best way that you can really decide what culture and what school is going to be best for you.
I love it. Thanks, Stephanie. And real quickly, we have 1 more minute here. Alex asked, I'm a architecture student at Palomar College and retired veteran with a systems engineering background in telecommunications. I'm considering applying to USC or CalPoly. I'd like to ask the panelists if there are any GIS geospatial curriculums in your program. Mark and Jennifer, can you share real quickly for us?
Yeah, at CalPoly, with our both landscape architecture and city regional planning, we have GIS courses, and those courses are available to non-major students. And we also have a central, he's in our library, Russ White. He's an amazing, amazing individual at the university at large, who is a GIS specialist. And so we often do collaborations with him. So when you get to that stage, please reach out, and I'd be happy to share with you what we have with regard to GIS.
Thank you, Mark. How about you, Jen, at USC?
Sure. At USC, there is something called the Spatial Sciences Institute. It's an academic program of study that offers undergrad and graduate level programs. And so we frequently have students at both undergrad and grad who take elective courses in that program and apply those credits towards their degree requirements. And so they are the experts in GIS and spatial mapping and et cetera, et cetera. So definitely great opportunities to collaborate with that school. And also within our landscape architecture program, which is a master's level program, we have coursework in that curriculum that students could potentially take as well as electives.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope that helps answer your question. So with that, that completes our first day or second day of Career Connect. I'd like to send a warm thank you to each of our panelists and schools. Thank you so much for sharing your candid advice for our upcoming emerging professionals in this crazy time that we're in. We really appreciate all your time and all your advice today. And I will just share for all students, all the information in the chat will be shared to all that registered. So just make sure you register to the event. We'll send all the links that were shared here today, and feel free, again, you heard it from our panelists, reach out. They're happy to have you, and answer any questions you may have. So on behalf of everyone here at AIA San Diego, thank you so much. Thank you for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, A. You guys were great.
Thank you, guys.
Joseph.
You were
Nice to
awesome.
meet you.